What's going on, everyone? Yes, we've got a PowerPoint. You know how I love my PowerPoints. So this one is titled The SATOR Square and the Alpha and the Omega. Now, some of this information I just learned, but I made some more connections with it. So I want to share you what I learned first, and then I'm going to connect it with other things. Now, this is the SATOR Square if you've never seen it before. If you notice, going from top left to the right, going down, it's a sator, a repo, tenet, opera, rotas. Now go from the top down. Sator, a repo, tenet, opera, rotas. Now go from the bottom right to the left. Read it like Hebrew. Sator, a repo, tenet, opera, rotas. It's wild, right? People had no idea what to do with this. People had no idea what to do with this. These are 5 Latin words. Now, if we do the breakdown, arepo, the sower, sator, guides, tenet, the wheel, rotas, with skill, opera. Very, very interesting sentence, right? Now go back to this real quick. You'll notice that in the middle, going down, and in the middle, going across, there's a tenet cross, right? What does tenet mean? Guides. What does the cross do? It guides. That's what it does. Now, recently, some people have figured this out. They didn't know what to do with the square for like ever and ever and ever. And what they really found out was that if you take all the letters in the SATOR square, it makes a cross that spells the words pater noster, with the A and the O being left out. Now, what is pater noster? Pater noster. Well, it's the Lord's Prayer. So say it with me. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Now remember, nobody on the planet has any idea who named Earth Earth. We don't have that information. It was probably lost a long time ago. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Right? So here's the interesting thing, too. Right? Let's go back to Pater Noster. When you use up all the letters in the SATOR square, it leaves out the A and the O. What is the A and the O? Well, that's the alpha and the omega, right? The beginning and the end. Now, where else can we see that? So that's what I learned this weekend. But where else can we see that? Let's take a look at this in Hebrew. Remember, you're reading right to left. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Now notice a couple of things. Okay. In the beginning, Elohim created, untranslated particle, the earth, and untranslated particle, the heavens. Now, a lot of people will sit there when they read the first sentence of the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's not how it's supposed to be read. You have to understand Hebrew. You have to read this the proper way to understand the kind of things that I'm about to jump into with you in this video. Now, let's read this the right way. Elohim. God is El, E-L. In the word Israel, you have Isis, Ra, and El. 3 gods. El is God. Ohim in Hebrew would be the equivalent of putting like a apostrophe S on it. It's a plural. So it's the gods. So the real way to read this is in the beginning, the gods created the heavens and the earth. There were multiple gods. Now let's look at this. Where it says untranslated particle. You see that? That's an aleph and that's a taf. It spells the word et. Now, what is so interesting about et? Oh, and then at the bottom, it's ve'et haaretz. The vav is like, let's say it's the word, it's to add with. So et and with et. What is that? What is that? Well, let's look at this. In English, you have the alphabet. In Latin, it would be the alpha beta. In Hebrew, it's the aleph bet. These are the first two letters of the language. In Albanian, alphabet, Corsican, alphabetu, Danish, alphabet, Dutch, alphabet, French, alphabet, German, alphabet. Just giving you a few examples. It's the same thing across the board. These are all variations to the same thing. The first two letters of the language. We're going to look at, right now, to continue on that point, Hebrew. Now, there are 22 letters in the Hebrew language. So let me give you a little lesson, guys. We're going to start reading from the top right to the left. I'm going to teach you the Hebrew alphabet. Starting at the top right, that's an aleph. Then the next one, bet, gimel, dalid, hey, vav, second line, zayin, chet, tet, yud, kaf, third line, lamed, mem, nun, samech, ayin, pei, fourth line, tzadik, kuf, resh, shin, taf. Now, this is interesting too, guys, because what did I just tell you before? Untranslated participle or particle. It's an aleph and a taf. It spells the word et. It's untranslated. Well, look at the alphabet here, the Hebrew aleph bet. The first letter is the aleph, and the last letter, the 22nd, is the taf. It's the alpha and the omega again. Isn't that interesting? Now let's look at this, the 10 Commandments. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make idols. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. The first 3 commandments from God are all having to do with not taking other gods, not making idols. It's all about God. It has nothing to do with us. It's just what we should do. Why? Because when you dive deep into these works, you realize that there are multiple gods, and this God, this particular God, was chosen. Now, this God is a jealous God. But why would this God be a jealous God? Because there are other gods that people were praying to, right? The interesting thing about this is that when you're talking about this, what made this God special? This particular God of gods. Remember, Elohim is plural, guys. What made this so special? This God so special? Well, you have to look and you have to understand the history of everything that came before the Old Testament. And what you'll find in the Old Testament is the story of Abraham and Isaac. Now, Abraham, astrotheologically, is a combination of 2 words. Abba, Abraham, Ram, Ram. Abba Ram, Father Ram, the father of Aries, the father of the Jewish people. His name was Abram. He becomes Abraham after this. What is so exquisite about this God among other gods? What is so important? Abraham goes to sacrifice Isaac, and he stopped at the end. And because of his faith, child sacrifice was no longer required. This God, amongst other gods, does not require child sacrifice. That is why this God is so special, albeit a jealous God. He wants you to remember that he stopped that practice, because you see things like child sacrifice everywhere. I mean, abortion is child sacrifice. It is. I hate to tell you this. You can spin it all you want. I'm not going to tell you whether you should have one or not. Not my place. But abortion is child sacrifice. The 500-year-old Mayan mummy that they found, that's child sacrifice. Everything was child sacrifice up until this exact point. This is why this God is special, the God among gods. So when we read things like Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, we know that there are multiple gods. And we know that et was untranslated, the Alpha and the Omega, just like In the Rotas square, the alpha and the omega. Just like in the Hebrew language, the alpha, first letter, and the Tuf, and the omega. It's all right there, guys. So thank you for listening. I'd love to hear your comments on this, but I will talk to you soon.